Hey guys, you are listening to the Dirty Sheets. I'm your host Billy, and this week I'm not joined by Cav. I'm joined by a very special guest, former WCW superstar, and my colleague on the brand with Vince Russo. It is Glenn Gilberti, the Disco Inferno. Did I say Glenn Gilberti? Did I say that right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Vince still calls me Gilbernetti. You know the story behind that?
No.
So the very first organization I ever worked for, like I went right out of training school in Alpharetta, Georgia, and they had a thing called North Georgia Championship Wrestling, cable access, low production quality, local wrestling, back in 2000, when is this, 2001, 2002. And the guy, his name was the guy that ran the was like the MC of the show. His name was Sammy Kent. He was like a Southern guy, kind of like a Colonel Sanders gimmick. But like for a shoot, he was illiterate, right? Like he wasn't very good at reading and writing. Like that, I'm just saying, this is just the facts, right? So like when he'd write the names down on the sheet, like stuff, he just wasn't really good at, like, his literacy wasn't good. Like there was a tag team called the Nasty Critters. He would put down like the Nasty Criddle, like this is like just weird like little things like that.
Right.
But I was debuting, right? And my name was Glenn Gilberti, right? But he was illiterate. So when he read my name in the air, he goes, "Oh, we're going to have one of our graduates from the school down there, Glenn Gilbernetti, is going to be debuting down there." And he said it wrong. Okay, but he got on TV, and like I didn't know the dirt sheets back then, or the observer, because I'd never even seen him before until I started training. And like guys in the locker room had the observer and the torch, right? But like I guess like because it was that got wind and somebody heard it, I was Glenn Gilbernetti for a while. Even though I never intended to be Glenn Gilbernetti, I just want to be Glenn Gilberti. So it's pretty funny.
The people call you Glenn, or some people do call you Disco, don't they? Is that
No,
depend?
everybody calls me Disco. Nobody calls me Glenn. Like five, yeah, you can count on 5 fingers the amount of people that call me Glenn.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So,
My mom included. So
what your mom calls you Disco?
no, she calls me Glenn.
Oh,
But
right.
like there's like not many others. She's included in the five of the one of the 5 fingers.
These are all industry people. These aren't going to be people
Right?
around and about Vegas, are they?
No.
Just the people you know. No. Um, right. So we're here to talk about this week's wrestling. Unfortunately, although I did think that the pay per view was okay. We'll touch on SmackDown for just a couple of minutes because it was a show they put on FS1, and it seems like large chunks of it were just dedicated towards this Owens Owens and Roman Reigns match. That's probably because you only gave this whole storyline 3 weeks to build up. Regardless of that, do you have any thoughts on SmackDown at all?
I got thoughts on the WWE product. Let me know what you think about this because I ran it by Conan when we did our show. Um, so whenever I go into these shows, okay, whenever I watch these, okay, I'm always watching them under the premise of like the ratings are not good. Right, the ratings have dropped to historically low levels, right? So what can we point to of why the ratings are dropping like they are? Okay, and we had the Variety magazine article that came out. That is the only it's the only like go to source now where people that actually have quit watching, we've surveyed them and they've told us why they quit watching. And so the number one reason that 78% of the wrestling audience is left, and only 12, a very small percentage remain, is that the number one reason is that's too cartoonish. Okay, so I'm always when I watch this show, I'm like looking at this and going, okay, is this cartoonish what they're delivering to me right now in the way like, okay, you're I'm not an adult, you're treating me like a child, you're insulting my intelligence, this is cartoon, this is fake, this is just too corny, right? And what SmackDown does amongst all the other shows is they try to put as much of their serious stuff as possible on TV, but it's still littered with cartoonishness. And if you watch all of the shows every week, SmackDown, Raw, NXT, and AEW, SmackDown is far more serious based than any of the other shows, but it's still got campy, cartoonish stuff in the middle of it, like still way too much. And you just look at the Roman angle, and it's like, bro, it's like the only thing on their programming right now that you'd kind of take seriously and invest in, like this is a serious story. And it's like that's why they thread it throughout the show now, and that's why it's the only show on TV right now that's actually doing consistent, decent numbers above what they were before Roman came in. So that's the way I look at it. What do you think?
What did you think was cartoonish about it? Do you think the Sammy Slammy thing was cartoonish, or
Okay, I'm not like if Sammy was the only cartoonish guy on the show, his cartoonish was to be acceptable because he's actually performing it very well because he's very good in this role. He doesn't look like he's doing campy acting.
right?
You know what I'm saying? Like, so he's a very talented guy given the spot they're putting him in, but he's delivering it to where it's like almost not cartoonish because he's doing it so well that the people that are trying to make the stuff look serious that are doing it, are making it look cartoonish.
Yeah.
I give Sammy a pass because he's the second most interesting thing on the show.
Well, this is what that's why I pointed that one out in particular because I enjoy his shtick. So I wanted to see where we were at with who you felt was.
Well, he's a great character. It's like the typical complaining millennial guy. So it's like, like you're looking at this, go, this is a good, okay, he's doing this well. He looks like, and you're invested in it. But then they put him out there with a guy like Big E, who is being way too over the top. Like it will never, like he's still doing the New Day cartoonish like character stuff and thing. And to me, that's like that's what makes that Sammy stuff looks cartoonish is when he's doing it with another cartoonish character.
Right. Yeah, I think this is a far better show. I mean, my kid, who's only 9 years old, he thinks it's a far better show as well. His favorite characters are over on Raw, where we know Drew, and he likes the Fiend, and he's met AJ before, and these are guys that he's liked for a long time. But still, he'll still prefer to watch SmackDown, and he'll say that the storyline is better. But yeah, within the show, the 2 hours are a much more bearable watch as well. That's that third hour of Raw is really difficult to do. But yeah, I thought SmackDown was in this particular week. I thought it was a show they just had to get out there because it was on FS1, and I think they did mainly pad it out with this Owens and Roman stuff. But generally, week to week, anything that Roman does, even if it's this 3-week storyline with Kevin Owens, they're managing to heat it up to the point where you want to see the match. And that's because this character, this heel run that he's having, it's interesting whoever you put him with. Because if they even just all of a sudden we come out of this program with Kevin Owens, I know they're going to have the steel cage match on Christmas Day. But even after we do that, and automatically we just like that, put him with Daniel Bryan, somehow by the time we get to the Royal Rumble, we're all going to be interested in Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan because that character now has credibility and he has the viewer's eye.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think the interest level is maintained the whole time because the match is Roman's secondary storyline. The storyline they're doing every week on the show is the relationship between him and Jey Uso.
Right.
And that's so you can thread that consistently throughout whatever he does. If that's still the underlying storyline between them, and then until they get involved with a character that's worthy enough to okay, now we're going to build it to a big match between somebody. But right now, the episodic soap opera storytelling is the relationship between Jey Uso and Roman, and they're just interjecting characters for them to enact with to build until they find somebody where he can have a money match.
But they've been very clear though, in terms of that is the storyline, and they've been very clear to have Jey be very subservient, and he's no longer fighting back and defending himself, and he's just taking these beatings. So they're not giving you they're not putting any seeds in there where it looks like there's going to be any resistance. Because you remember back in the day where Batista was about to leave Evolution, right? And there were little tiny seeds that he was going to leave. There's no seeds that Jay's going to leave. If you put the seeds in there, then that is ultimately the big match that you're planning towards, because you're waiting for Jay to break away. You're kind of like the days where Virgil left Ted DiBiase when he was working for the $1 Million Man. We've had all of these stories in the past where the master abuses someone and they get tired of it and then they rise up against them. They're not giving you those seeds, because they want to make it very, very clear that Jey is just going to take this, because there is no Jey and Roman match down the line. And I think that's important, because if there was any kind of inkling of Jey standing up to him and not wanting to be a part of this, then we would be looking at that being the match that they were building towards, which they're not, clearly.
Well, when's the brother supposed to come back?
I think the brother was when he came hobbling out. I heard on some other shows that he was about 4 or 5 months away from being back, which
4 or 5 months
at that time. So now it would only be another couple, I would say.
It's another element to the storyline. Another family member and Jackie, the brother, the twin, and stuff. So I mean, yeah, but I think they're just doing what they can do. They're like these guys are like the Roman angle is just good TV. You can't put enough of it on there, And it's like and the Kevin Owens stuff. I thought it was decent storytelling compared to what you're working with. I'll tell you what they should do. Like, I think me and Vince actually talked about this. Is like, okay, the one thing everybody's talking about, the biggest criticism of the match is that Kevin Owens is, why didn't anybody come out and help him? Like, okay, well, that should be the story for the next show. Why didn't anybody come out and help you? If you want to build Kevin Owens and make him more sympathetic, make him more like, tell the story why nobody wants to help a guy like him.
Yeah,
but what I'm saying, these are obviously things that probably never. we're just fantasy booking right now. Like that company, like the fantasy booking blows away the real booking every week on the internet. So it's like because fantasy booking is far more interesting. But yeah, it's just like I think Roman. I think he can carry this for as long as they like until WrestleMania. But I still don't know who's going to work. They still don't have a. I mean. I don't know. I heard is that true? Big E, Brock, and him. Was that what I heard?
No. It's if you're listening to this rumor that was out, you're thinking of Keith Lee, Drew McIntyre, and Brock.
Drew. Okay.
Yeah,
Keith Lee, Drew, and is that accurate?
No, it's not accurate. Not as far as
it can't possibly be accurate. What about? So what are you hearing from Roman?
Roman,
January, we're getting the Royal Rumble time now. So nobody's very concrete about anything, right?
No, because that's because they're not concrete about the locations and what they want to commit at the moment. Like what they were planning to do was have Roman go over on any kind of part timer who could come in. So they were looking at they don't want to go. They're not going to be able to do the Rock this year, and they rock in the Rock match. They want to do both parties want to do it in the California market anyway. If the Rock did it, he would do it in 2022 because that's when the XFL launches. Mm-hmm. So a good platform for the XFL for him to be involved in wrestling for that year. So it won't be him, but they are looking at Goldberg, Cena, things like that. At one point they were looking at Big E, but the whole thing with Big E hasn't worked. And some of that has been down to the fact that Big E hasn't been responsive to his own push. There's been issues where he didn't particularly want to be separated from the New Day, which is backwards thinking. If they're trying to push you and you want to be stuck in this group, then it's difficult to push you. But yeah, that's where they're at. But the problem is that they don't know where they're going to be. They've got Tampa booked for April, the football stadium, mm-hmm. But they don't know how many people they're going to be able to have in there and whatnot. And it's the same for the Rumble at the moment. The Rumble they could do without fans, and that's another thing I was explaining to Vince. One of the things that people don't understand is that it's Vince McMahon's choice not to have 30% of people in there like they're doing for all the NFL games. Vince McMahon is the one who thinks the Thunderdome looks good. Vince McMahon is the one who thinks that having sprinkles of fans is a bad look that he's not a fan of. So in his
way, and the Thunderdome fans are controlled too.
Well, not very well.
You don't even have to hear him. He's probably tired of the live fans hijacking the chants and stuff and everything. Yeah, but of course, to him, the Thunderdome is going to be way better because you don't hear these the wrestlers cheering, booing the heels, booing the baby faces, and cheering the heels. In his vision, I see that a lot. So I'm thinking unless it's a full house, it's to me this is it's better because of what would you, bro. The crowd's gonna be full with trolls. Who would be the type of people that want to be some of those small pockets of fans these live shows? 100% they're just gonna be people trolling the show. So it's I would I agree with Vince. Unless it's worth it bringing the fans back, I would just stick with the Thunderdome.
Well, yeah, he is looking at this big bang comeback of full fans and whatnot, but I don't think that's even going to be Mania. But you can do the Rumble with 30% capacity. You can integrate the Thunderdome along with fans in there at the same time, but I don't know if he wants to do that. From what I'm hearing, like he's a really big fan of the Thunderdome, and he thinks that the NFL looks shitty, like the way it's doing its thing with the half crowd, not even half crowd, 30% crowd. Right. So we'll move on from SmackDown. The only other thing I was going to talk about is the Carmella and Sasha storyline. Just generally, how did you think that built up over the few weeks? Because obviously this is Sasha's first thing that she's moved on from after Bayley.
I'll tell you what, visually, it looks like two hot Instagram models in an angle with each other. They're very well dressed on the show. They come across as stars. They look like stars. I just think Carmella is way more convincing on the mic than Sasha is. Right. Sasha's got this. She's in this weird place where she doesn't. She's a babyface. She's not really convincing as a babyface. She comes across as kind of heelish when she's trying to do a babyface interview. But Carmella's actually a great heel. They gave her too much mic time this past. I mean, if the finish of that angle they did on SmackDown was you go smash her with the bottle, it didn't have to be a 12 to 13 minute segment. It could have been like 5 to 6. Carmella could have said 4 minutes of healer stuff. She comes in, boom. But like Carmella talked for like 10 minutes. It seemed like and it's kind of like it's hard to do. But she's been good in her role. I'm like it's decent TV compared to like other like when you see just a couple nondescript average looking girls on television just going out there and having a basic wrestling match. This is I like this instead.
No, yeah, I agree with you. I think there has been too much of this women's revolution stuff, and it's been a lot. And when they do try and put people like Carmella in the spotlight. And even when they were putting Alexa in the spotlight at certain times, you get this backlash from a certain portion of the fans who just want their Baileys and their Sasha Banks in the role. But like that isn't necessarily going to work. Like nobody thinks about what's going to bring in any casual fans, and what's not going to bring in casual fans in the other shows. Having Lana out there doing wrestling matches, there are different roles that people can occupy. For example, the Iconics didn't need to be split up. They could have occupied a role together where they were just doing their shtick outside of the ring. Like there's different things that everybody can do, especially in the current climate. Not everything needs to go down in the ring. I would be utilizing a lot more backstage kind of stuff, and I'd be using the women in different ways, not just during this time, but permanently. We don't need so many average looking and average female workers. Like they don't need to have so much of this.
Right. Let me tell you too. Carmella is she's very talented, but it's like it's like we're like because I don't know. I think these people they do good numbers with the girls, right? But it's like the like what you're talking about. We don't know how many there should be on the show, whatever and all. Sometimes they get a little different. The problems with the time constraints, like they give these girls too much time sometimes that they aren't good at matches, or they give these girls like too little time that are good at matches.
Right.
But with Carmella, it's like I think they're missing a huge opportunity in storytelling. Is it all fans? Graves and her are dating each other.
Oh, you froze for a second there.
Yeah. I'm gonna back in. All right. So my question is why don't they address that fact that Corey Graves and Carmella are dating each other? Because that would be an interesting dynamic to have on the show.
Do you not think it'd be too difficult to get around if they were?
Why is it difficult? They're dating each other. Like he would obviously be like pushing her, like beyond his as a ring announcer, he's going beyond his duty of trying to put her over. To me, it's just more. It'd be more interesting to act like to see. But the announcing is bland on that show. They never have any type of banter, anything that to me like is emphasizes the the storylines or stuff. So it's like I think just be interesting stuff while she's on the show.
I think they do allude to it. I think they do like he alludes to it in his own way, but like it's not clear when it like certain comments that he makes. I mean, it's just all insider stuff that he comes out with. So, looking at the pay-per-view on Sunday, and we'll talk about the Carmella and Sasha in a minute again. What was your overall take on the pay-per-view again? Because I think the pay-per-views, the Thunderdome pay-per-views, have been okay.
Decent. I always think like I'm like it's just they've got a very weird segment of audience, I guess, that they're trying to market to right now. Okay, and it just intersects with my concept of like if I was going to book a professional wrestling show, it's like what would my vision look like, right? And to me, there's just the whole thing of just very over the top and treating the fans like they have no intelligence whatsoever. Like, okay, we get it. It's tables, ladders, and chairs, but we didn't have to pay some $5,000 an hour interior designer to come in and lay out a bunch of tables and chairs, decorate the set and stuff because we have to be told it's tables, ladders, and chairs. And here are all the tables, ladders, and chairs. The set doesn't look like a professional wrestling set. Like I'm not into it, and this is this is there's the 3 shows over the holidays here. You see the Christmas trees and presents and all this silly stuff, and I'm like, bro, how am I supposed to get my suspension of disbelief in the right place to start watching this? If you're treating me like I'm this dumb, I can't figure out. Okay, it's tables, ladders, and chairs. That's the vibe I get. What they're trying to book. And this is where I'm sitting when I'm seeing what they're trying to deliver to me, Yeah,
but have they not been doing that for if you date back to the pumpkin at Halloween Havoc, that was around for a while. So you think that that was campy then? Because
I think it's been campy for years.
Yeah,
but here's my point: we're on a year's trend of downward, downward cycle in wrestling. And I want to point to spots like this in the trends. I say, yeah, this is like the thing where we have an audience and they're watching this, and we're not taking our product seriously.
We're in a 20-year downward cycle.
A 20-year downward cycle, and it's like I was saying, okay, doing this campy stuff this obviously could be one of the symptoms of the problems of professional wrestling and why people turn it off. And I'm trying to bring stuff like this up because the people that have been watching for the past 20 years. I haven't noticed that some of these things look really silly and cartoonish, which is why a lot of people turn this stuff off. And I try to point these things out to the people that like us, and you probably would notice it more if you thought about it, and looked at the trends and stuff, everything. But every time it comes around, it's there's things on this show that we like, but we're watching the show. So we're part of the audience that exists for the show, right? Yeah. And I'm just I've been saying for the past month or two now, when I'm watching the Bray Wyatt stuff and the Fiend and the Firefly Funhouse, I'm like, okay, guys, this character's been on TV for a while now. We kind of dig it because it's artsy and it's creative and stuff. But the ratings are continuing to go down for professional wrestling, and I'm looking at this as perspective now when I'm watching the Firefly Funhouse and everything. I'm like, dude, this looks like Romper Room. Like if I'm telling somebody to come watch this, I'm not pulling another adult into the room and saying, hey, well watch this is pretty cool right here. An 8-year-old kid, and say, hey, look at this. This is funny. This is silly. Look at they're doing Romper Room with puppets and everything. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, you first. So I'm just wondering if some of the stuff that we might like Bray Wyatt, this character just isn't good for the product right now. Because nobody's watching it, it looks very cartoonish, it looks very silly. It's very difficult to take it seriously, but we're looking at it from a different spectrum of the fans that are just the casuals. If the casual is trying to watch this, they're looking at this going, this is Romper Room stuff. And they're just turning off.
Yeah,
we're more invested because we've been watching it, but I'm like, bro, I don't think programming like that is good for the product.
It's a weird one because I even had this like even back in the day, like so if you speak to someone, I'm trying to think of a show that's if you speak to people that try and catch any kind of TV series, like or any kind of sitcom, even if it was say for example it was Friends, and if you started to catch Friends on series 7 or 8, and you just think like oh, you know, Joey's dumbness or Phoebe's comments or Chandler's behavior or you know the Ross with his like 3 divorces and all that. The characters of Friends, they all had a background state which dated back to season 1. The real comedy in most sitcoms and most series occurs in the first couple of seasons when they set it up. And if they manage to get up to season 7 or 8, be it Friends or Seinfeld, you know Kramer, you know George, you knew who everybody was. It's much funnier, and the comedy is much easier as you get through. Now, it's really difficult to join any kind of TV show at that stage. That's the problem with WWE. And when you don't come in, at the beginning, anytime you come in on Bray Wyatt now, or even from before, and him with him transforming to the Fiend and all that, it does become campy and confusing, and you feel like you're too far gone to be invested in it.
Perfect example. You want to get invested in it, and they're like burning him alive, and you go, bro, you're literally laughing out loud at that point of how ridiculous, bro. Because here's the problem, and this is, I guess, the writing team, and maybe even Vince McMahon's mind is wired this way, but I know what Tony Khan's is and stuff and all that, all these companies, bro, they are way too big of marks for South Park. Okay, because what the shows are like, the shows are presented on a South Park comedy level, where it's like there's always punchlines, there's always skits, everything's kind of like centered around funniness, and when there is mega violence, it's almost comical. You know, like with where Dustin Rhodes and the kids are bleeding all over each other in the match where they have the presence and they have the bunkhouse match in AEW where they have all the horse carriages set up around ringside like with this lore, but everybody's bleeding all over themselves and they're just cussing randomly and stuff. Everything like at WWE, like they're burning people alive. It's like we're looking at the violence, and the violence isn't even to be taken seriously. It's like on a comedic level, and it's like. I just wonder if just wrestling has gotten way too humorous and way too funny, and there's just way too many people that want to get their giggles into the show. That's what the tone of professional wrestling looks like, and it's just very difficult for people to engage in stuff like this.
Let me read you what my 9-year-old wrote about this match, this Inferno match, because it's weird because what he says at the end. The final match on the show was Firefly Inferno match between Randy Orton and The Fiend, which was so crazy. I don't understand how The Fiend is still alive after losing by being lit on fire. Orton put gas all over him and lit the gas up with a match to start a fire, burning The Fiend. The only part I did not like was that The Fiend had to lay down for too long after the RKO, which made him look weak. In my opinion, this was one of the most dangerous matches ever, and I don't know how they pull this off. It looked really good, and this is something you would see in a movie and something I would show people who don't watch wrestling to make them want to watch it.
For your kid's 9?
Yeah.
Oh my god! Well, at least they got the cover. Well, that's what they're doing then. Conan keeps saying this all the time on the show. Maybe they're just booking the show for kids and trying to build the next fan base of fans, like getting them when they're 9 years old and making them doing real campy, cartoonish stuff, and they're just drowning out the noise of the mature audience.
Well, I mean, he's 9, nearly 10, but he's still able to say that the Fiend sold too long. He sold the RKO.
Right. But think about that. It's like if that's like I'm listening to this is actually kind of eye opening. Is that their programming resonates with like 9-year-olds.
Yo, yeah.
They say, okay, so it's like, okay, maybe they're trying, but here's the problem. It's resonating with 9-year-olds, but something's happening between 9 and 18 with their product and the maturity level of their fans, because like their demographics in the 18 to 34 are atrocious. And so it's like I don't so whatever they're doing here to appease the 9-year-old, they're losing some other fans along the way.
I'll tell you what happened between 7 and 9 years old is that between 7 and 9 years old, what he does now is he says, when we're watching Raw, he says, can we fast forward some of this? Or can we fast forward some of this? And so so he.
What does he like to fast forward? The matches, right?
The matches, matches where he goes, can we get to, he always says to me, Dad, can we get to the first ad break? What that means is that he knows when the match starts, there's going to be one ad break. Nothing's going to happen until the ad break comes, and then after the ad break is when the match will start. We're heading to the finish of the match. Yeah. So he doesn't like watching that beginning bit up to the first ad break because there's no point.
But the live betting on the booking markets would be great for the WWE programming. Like, what spot goes to we'll get to the ad break. The live betting is like the over the top rope to the floor, big bump over, you hit your own. You accidentally hit your partner and they argue spot. It's like everything they do to get to the break. So, right?
It's usually like the baby faces send the heels to the outside,
right,
and then hit the suicida.
Right, the dive over the top. Like, this is Plainest Day that was laying down. Like, hey, let's go to the break. Jesus.
Well, let's run through these matches quickly so we can get some Raw in. Because I know you've got Russo in 20 minutes.
No, a little bit. No, he moved it back to 3.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. So we had Drew and AJ opening up the show, and we have Miz coming in here and essentially wasting his Money in the Bank. Did you just lots of questions here? Did you like the match, and then also did you feel they ever had a plan with this Money in the Bank? A, for Otis, and B, from getting it onto the Miz. Because this just seems like a mess that they've just been trying to get out of the whole year.
This match was disappointing to me on a level that I felt bad for AJ and Drew, and here's why. It's like we're coming off like a week where they had very bad ratings. Everybody's highlighting on the wrestling medias, you got their fangs out, after WWE right now. The booking's terrible. Like, the anti-WWE narrative was a full force this week, right?
Yeah.
And so I just see these guys like this pay-per-view comes up, and like it happens like this almost every year. It's like for some reason just after big events they have, and just they just kind of taper off. They don't really have good booking after their their big events, right? So I'm just watching, AJ. How old is AJ? 43?
I'm not too sure.
How old is Drew?
Drew's 35.
These are grown men that just give them a ring, ropes, and turnbuckles, and they'll have a great match because they're very good storytellers and they're very good at what they do. And I'm just watching these guys go out there and just willingly subject themselves to just killing each other out there with the stunts and the tables and the ladder, just all the things. And I'm just like, wow, boy, the boys have always gone above and beyond to try to get fan response during periods of time where the show has been hindered by nothing's that's no fault of their own. The booking's been terrible and stuff and these guys are just go out there and killing themselves. And I'm just disappointed watching that. This is I'm watching this match, and we're at this point of the product where I'm not even looking at how good it is and how good they're working together and how well they executed the finish and stuff and everything, and how all the pieces work. Because in WWE programming, that's one thing they do very well is the theatrics, production, and the timing and stuff of finishing sequences. In the WWE, usually it's very, very well done. Okay, and I'm just watching these guys just kill it out there and doing this, and then afterwards I'm like, I didn't even know AJ come on TV. He's got a big shiner on his cheek up, busted up.
Yeah,
and I'm like, God Almighty, man, this is these guys are having to go out there and do that because their product is not doing well. And I'm like, wow, it's just hard. For being a wrestler, it's very difficult to watch,
It's a longer term problem, and it's something that I don't know why they ever started this, but I've always spoken about hating the gimmick pay-per-view, about how you must have a feud heated up enough every October to go into Hell in a Cell, and how you must every December you must be in a situation where two guys have a rivalry which is hot enough to have a TLC, because the pay-per-view is called TLC and the pay-per-view is called Hell in a Cell. But now they don't even they don't even book well enough, or they're too lazy to even have the rivalry heated up enough. They had Uso and Roman at Hell in a Cell, and then they had Drew and Orton, which is fine because it was Drew and Orton Part 3. So that one worked. But these TLC matches, they were simply just, you're the number one contender, your title shot will be TLC. Made no sense whatsoever. And not only that, but they did 2 of them on the same night. At least with the Hell in a Cell, which they did 3 of, Sasha, Bayley, Uso and Roman, and Drew and Orton. There was variants where Sasha and Bayley mainly conducted their match inside of the ring. Roman and Uso did a very different match to Drew and Orton, in that they did the whole thing where Roman they did an I Quit match inside the Hell in a Cell. And it was Drew and Orton that did the Hell in a Cell match that was kind of more the traditional match where they got outside of the cell and everything, which actually, funny enough, was probably the worst Hell in a Cell match of the night. It was the 3rd best out of the 3, even though they did your more traditional style Hell in a Cell. In this instance, there's not really too many places you can go with TLC. So it was just the same match twice, other than the fact that Miz was thrown in. Did they think that throwing Miz in was the difference maker that they needed to differentiate the 2 matches? I didn't understand why they did this, and why the Money in the Bank was wasted like this, and why they were so desperate, why this was like some sort of chalice that they had to get rid of for the entire year. First, they gave it to Otis. They put themselves in that situation. They didn't need to do that, but there must have been an idea there. I just, for the whole month,
let me give this to you, because like they're always, a lot of times on their shows, you can, in every show, with AEW's been like, every angle. Angles are just reruns of stuff that. Oh, hang on. So did you hear my last point, or did I went in and out there?
You went out a bit. You were going.
Okay, so whenever in the past, whenever they've had like angles between multiple characters, that they've had factions or groups, or the baby faces or tag teams and everything, they always do like the same angle, like over and over and over and over. Like if it's it's 3 baby faces together, one of them has a championship, they're gonna not get along, or they're gonna hit each other, or they're just gonna, it's like, they keep doing all this, like this repeat, booking, and it's just like, it doesn't, and they keep presenting the situations over and over, and they keep plugging just different characters into the same angles over and over, and it just to me looks like rerun booking every single time.
That's what the wrestlers call Bruce and Kevin Dunn. That's their nickname backstage is copy paste high five.
Yeah, because that's what it looks like. What's going to happen if there's 3 babyface characters. They're not going to get along with each other. They're going to accidentally hit each other in a match, and it's going to lead to a match next week. It's just like, and like, so it's like, how do you, like, this stuff hasn't worked. The ratings keep going down. It's like, so maybe what you were doing, the angle you were discussing there, maybe for one time they went outside the box. Okay, let's do something we've never done before, because maybe that might make sense, when the reality is the reason we never did it is because it doesn't make sense.
So if you were to speculate, what did you think the plan was at the time? Did you think Otis was hot at the time, or I can't imagine they ever wanted to make him the world champion. So I don't understand why they ever put the Money in the Bank on him. It never made sense on any level.
Well, and it's weird too, because when they had it on Otis, like his character would have not be too sophisticated, would just try to go cash in right away. Right. So then they threw so he's already not true to his character by trying to get, everybody's manipulating him to make him look like an imbecile because he can't figure it out, and they're suing him and stuff like. But that whole thing just sent these characters on a downward spiral of like we're in this world that's filled with no common sense, and we're all fake, and it's all silly and stupid and stuff and everything. So it's like, you know, so when I see Miz come out of that, and then, you know, he's still a very good performer and can cut a great promo every now and then, you know, but when he's doing the silly, ridiculous, cheesy stuff, I'm like, bro, you're just devaluing these guys of what they can do. You know, because like these guys could be in the serious stuff, but you're putting them in the comedy stuff. So even though Miz is a great performer, when he's interfering in this match, this 3-way, I'm just looking at his character like he's an idiot. Why would he do this right now in the middle of a 3-way? Like, he's got to be smarter than to think there's got to be a better spot than this.
There was the literally better spots in the build up to the show.
Right. So it's like, you know, it's like you're saying, like, why do they keep making this guy look like a moron? His character is far better as a serious character, acting far more intelligently and cutting more serious promos. But they got him doing a buddy cop thing with Morrison, and they're both acting like idiots.
Well, everybody,
you know, it's like,
there's very, very few people on the show that don't act like idiots. Like,
they're far better in roles when they're not acting like idiots. You know, it's like you see them not act like idiots, and they're good characters. You know, when they act like idiots, it just devalues everybody.
So, what were your do you have any other thoughts on the match in general, or?
I mean, no, it was good because they're good performers. You know, bro, you work with AJ, everything's spot on. He's got his timing down. Everything is just, you know, it's just good stuff. You know, it's just, I mean, those guys are very impressive workers.
How did you think so we both like the build to Sasha and Carmella. How do you think it translated to in a match?
I fast forwarded most of it, but Carmella is actually her work is not that bad because she looks very convincing with their offense, and she doesn't try to do too much. Like a lot of these girls try to do things just for the sake of doing them, and they don't look good doing them, and probably nobody's telling them that doesn't look good. Don't do that anymore, but they like to do it because the guys can do it. She doesn't go there with her work, you know. So she stays true to things she does well, and she's a very attractive girl. And but bro, her and Sasha dress like $1 million.
Yeah.
Like every week on the show, it's like you can't change a channel and somebody with a hot chick comes out dressed like that. You know, so that's common sense marketing. You know, so and they speak decent. You know, Sasha's promos, I'm not a big fan, but you're not turning the channel even when she's up there talking. You know, so and then their work is better than their mic work. So
yeah.
So this works. You know,
Sasha's dress and attire and style and everything's been commented on by a lot of people recently.
She looks like she's got $1,000 worth of clothes on.
Yeah, and she looks good.
Like she looks like a Versace outfit. Like, yeah, it looks good. You know.
Yeah, it's all fitted and yeah, it looks great.
Bro, there's a reason these Instagram models have like 8, 9, 10 million followers. You've never heard of these girls before. It's like you look at their pictures, they look fantastic. You know, they're wearing expensive clothes. So these girls have figured it out. You know, it's funny. And they're in this age of like, well, don't objectify the woman. It's like, no, I like, you know, objectify. Bro, tell the women not to be objectified. You know, those girls are not dressing sexy because they don't want to be objectified.
Right.
You know, they're cornering the market where all these other, I guess, unattractive people are trying to, you know, trying to tell you you're not allowed to, like, you know, talk about stuff like this. But like, bro, these hot girls know they're gonna make more money, and like we need to show off some sex appeal here because we can get paid. You know.
Where do we go from here? So we had the New Day lost the tag titles to the Hurt Business. They've been having,
you knew that was going to happen. So
they're having a load of matches on TV. Charlotte returns in the tag match. She replaces Lana, and her and Oscar win the tag titles. What did you think of that? Like in terms,
just in the follow up. I'm not. Charlotte's wasted with team with Oscar. Oscar to me is her work and her character are completely separate. Because her character is absolutely it's cartoonish and aggravating and annoying. Like when she's blabbering in Japanese and act like an idiot. And it's like, bro, this is not appealing. Like this is not getting fans. You know, this is turning people off. So I mean, I don't know unless the metrics tell me different, but I think her character is atrocious. To put Charlotte with her is atrocious.
there's no metrics to say that you're wrong because all the metrics are negative. I think
Right.
when you're looking at these individual metrics on the show at the moment, you're looking at, 20 to 50,000 people difference. And I don't think it's very much down to who's on TV. It might be for certain people. Obviously, you throw out John Cena out there, or The Rock comes back or something, you're going to see.
How long have you been doing the Dirty Sheets?
I was on the Steel Cage as first, and I moved on to the Dirty Sheets since about 2015.
Oh, so it's been like 5 years.
Yeah.
Bro, did you used to get the Wrestling Observer, the Torch, and everything back in the Attitude Era and stuff during that time?
No, not the Attitude Era, because I was only 15, 14.
Oh, you were only 15. Did you watch the wrestling back then?
Oh yeah. I've been watching since 1989.
Bro, it's just fascinating that part of the dialogue right now in professional wrestling is talk about the ratings, and it's like if you just compare it over the years, it's like nobody's watching it right now. And like we're doing ratings analysis, it's like, dude, it's like, you just look back when I worked. Everywhere you went, the building and stuff, there's just an electricity about professional wrestling. It was on the map. It was hot, It's just wrestling right now it's just not hot anymore.
But they'll tell
you
you
it's not electric. It's not electric. It's not on the map. It's because you got a lot of dull blades, in the business right now. People are just talking about matches and work and stars and stuff and star rating.
Well, these are the people who tell you it's hotter than it's ever been.
It's something. If there's never been a better time to be a wrestling fan, then where'd all the wrestling fans go? It's like you're trying to tell them to come back. Hey guys, come watch this stuff. It's never been a better time. Like they're tuning in and they're tuning out the next week.
Well, this is the thing. Even Vince McMahon is conning investors in his investor calls because he's turning around and telling them that we've never had more fans and people now digest content via different means such as YouTube and other forms of social media. So he's got them convinced that they're digesting the content.
Come on. That's like just like trying to say, like, look, that's like trying to say that if you look at the Twitter, the social media connection of the WWE, like if you looked at the WWE universe, all the WWE corporate accounts, all the professional wrestlers that work for the WWE, and like every related bit of content, and if you look at all their followers, right, you add them all up. And you're following these people, and all these people have to do is tweet, and it shows up on your timeline, your news feed, and you see it that day. Vince McMahon's looking at you, like, "Hey, look at all the fans we got." It's that's like what he's saying. Because if you're talking about the fans, you're talking about like, oh, you got 80 million fans. How come you can't get 2 million of them to watch your show on Monday night? It's like I mean, it's all BS. You know what I'm saying? It's all fuzzy math. They're making up numbers to try to make people that sound like stuff is not as bad as it is, and they sound convincing when they do it.
Even if he was correct, like people are still choosing to digest your content in a more like less time consuming way.
Right.
That would still be a concern to me.
Briefly. Yeah. Like you're briefly consuming the content. It's like you're providing 5 hours a week for us, or 7 hours including NXT. And we're watching the YouTube clips, we're watching Twitter, we're not watching the shows, and like so when your advertisers or the TV networks are coming around with rights fees for the next contract, it's like don't expect to make as much as you did before, because you're not providing content that's driving us to watch the show when it airs, and it's true that they're not.
Where are we at here? So there's not much more to say about the Orton match because that's lost. The match before that was the Universal title match with Owens and Reigns. I thought this was the best match on the show, but between these two, Reigns obviously wins.
Like, yeah, my only, it's good WWE theatrical storytelling. Okay, the work is good enough. Guys in the shows, all of the shows now are starting to throw more punches in the work instead of these stupid, ugly, fake-looking forearms that nobody ever sells. So guys are starting to look more like they're fighting out there, which looks good. But this was good storytelling. But unless it's addressed right? My just whole thing is like, why is nobody coming out there and helping Kevin Owens? So my suspension disbelief is not in the proper place because I'm wondering why this looks ridiculous. They're just speeding him up 2-on-1. Like not one single person is going to come out and help the guy, and that's all I was thinking. So if they do address it, then maybe like I get the storyline back in place. But that was my only criticism. But it was a decent match though.
What you're saying is the same as what my kid Austin was saying. He was saying, how come no one's coming to help him? And I said to him, like, who's going to come and help him? And I think he mentioned that he teamed up with Otis a few weeks before. Well, that was the only ally I think he'd made over the last few weeks. But yeah, there's anybody you can chuck out there. But I guess that's not the story that they're telling at the moment, where they want anybody to come out and help. So yeah. But that was the pay-per-view. Overall, I think the pay-per-view is good, and I don't think their pay-per-view presentation has been the problem during this whole pandemic. It's mainly been the fact that leading up to the pay-per-views, none of these matches are built up properly. So by the time you get to the pay-per-view, it doesn't really matter too much what you do in the ring. The fact is that the amount of people watching this pay-per-view isn't going to be enough to warrant the work that the wrestlers are putting in, because I'm pretty sure they're doing whatever they can with the shitty scripts that they get. And some people are even doing more. I'm pretty sure that people like Sammy kind of just do their own thing. I'm pretty sure that the Roman stuff is not being produced by the same people that are mainly writing Raw and SmackDown. And even from speaking to Drew, I know Drew gets things and tries to sort of improvise and do more with it. But I think you can really see the people that are just reading out the exact shit that they give him to read. And it's not read, and it's not good. Like, the stories on this show are not good. The way that you got to most of these matches wasn't good.
Cartoonish.
Yeah.
Bro, that's the thing. There's pockets of serious stuff, whether it be the work or a serious interview here or there, interjected in between all of the cartoonish nonsense they have to build the matches up. And you just watch, and that's what it looks like. And it's like you see the workers, when they're in the ring, at least holding up their end of the bargain, trying to make this look serious. But the way they get the angles and the conversations of the wrestlers on the show is not realistic. And I've been saying this all along. It's like they have too many comic book marks writing shows there. Because the conversations between the performers on...
Was it Shane Helms that had an issue with it?
He's a big comic book mark. But I'm like, dude, the wrestlers are having conversations that human beings are not having in real life. These are conversations that you see in cartoons and comic books. I guess whoever's writing these conversations are too big of a mark for cartoons and comics and not real life. And like, they're writing phony conversations. And the wrestlers are suffering because of it. Because they don't come across as genuine characters. And if these guys are so... If these guys are reading comic books all the time because that's what they're writing, get rid of them. Because it's littering the show, and the show is suffering. You know, it looks ridiculous. Some of these conversations these guys have on the show.
Oh, the third eye stuff, all the backstage stuff, the conversations that they have are all awful.
Atrocious, overly scripted. I don't know how anybody could deliver the lines in a convincing way anyway, but the wrestlers are so unconvinced with the verbiage that they're delivering the lines in the worst possible way, which is like not convincing at all. You know, but it's a catch-22.
How do you think that, before we move on to Raw, like, because I mean this is a Raw question anyway. How do you think that they got into this corner, or into this situation, or into this way of thinking? I think is a better way to say it, where they felt like they have themselves now the perfect show. This is the way to shoot the in-ring. This is the way to do the matches. Go outside the ring. Go to the ad break on these certain spots. This is the way we cut backstage promos. This is the way that we shoot the promos, where we have, you have guys talking to each other and then the camera's shooting them. Everything that we see that has existed for about 10 or 15 years. We've not seen anything new. If you take a snapshot of WWF 1988, 89, 93, 97, even 2002, 2003, it was always a little bit different. Always new things were coming in, and it was changing. I think this current snapshot of the last 15, 20 years has been exactly the same. Somehow...
It's a movie reel. It's not a snapshot.
Well, yeah, well, somehow they're
So if you like, yeah, it's like
yeah,
it's
but
very difficult to like capture like the snap because the snapshot doesn't even encapsulate because the snapshot from 20 years ago to snapshot 15 years ago to snapshot 10 years ago to snapshot 5, they're all completely different because they're all worse than the ones before it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know,
the format of the show is the same. Like for the last 10 years, the format of the show is the same. So I'm just wondering how they came onto this format where we do our scripted promo in the ring like this. We do our scripted backstage promo like that. You know, just for example, the thing where, say, for example, they're going to have a ladder match, right? They're going to have a ladder match. And then every ladder match combatant comes out with the mic and he talks about why he's going to win the ladder match. And then the next guy comes out and says how he's going to win the ladder match. And the go-home show for every Royal Rumble, it's every single guy having a brawl to go home for the Royal Rumble. Like we've seen that, right? And if it hadn't been COVID this year and we were doing the normal Survivor Series thing, it would be Team Raw.
It's backward. It's called It's backwards booking. They're coming up with the matches before they come up with the storylines to get to the matches. So they have the matches. So they work backwards. Okay, we got to figure out how to get here. And it's just a repeat of things that have been done repeatedly in the past. And I see it all the time. Jeff Jarrett liked to book like that. When me and Vince and Jeff and Dutch were writing shows, Jeff liked to have the matches, and we would have to figure out how to get there. And Vince used to like, okay, let's write story, let's do character development, see what matches come out of the character development, as opposed to just, you know, trying to navigate your way into a match by creating a story. So it's like you're throwing a football, but you're playing it. You're playing the replay before the actual play happens. You know, like you're throwing a pass. It's like we're trying to we want to get to the point, right? We want to be there, but then we want to figure out afterwards how to get there. You know, and I think the journey is like in writing stories and stuff. Things like just keep moving forward, and you'll get good things that come out of it. But at least a logical progression would take place because that's how life works. Like nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. You know.
But do you think this is a simple fix as having a different booking philosophy and having new people in the relevant seats?
Oh, I don't know. Bro. I don't know any. I know a couple people in the WWE universe that work there, right? And they're pretty talented people, you know. And I've known people in TNA, Impact, but when I worked there, that used to work in the WWE back when they were very successful, and they're also very talented people. I don't know the people that got them working there now. Like you don't know the names of any of the there's no. It's funny too. Is like Vince Russo has like this. What do you want to call it? In the Lord of the Rings, what did you call the evil army? What were they called?
I have not seen Lord of the Rings.
Okay, so it's like you have like Vince Russo has like this thing, like this army of evil behind him called like Russo booking. It's like everything.
I have it here actually, but it's sealed up. Like it's still in the.
What is that? Oh, Lord of the Rings game. Yeah.
Yeah, but
yeah. So like everything that's kind of like outside the box in professional wrestling is like labeled like, oh, this is Vince Russo booking. This is what he does, right? But like of all the stuff, the shitty stuff that's been happening over the past like 10 years of professional wrestling, like on TV, it's like there's never been a name put connected to like, okay, who wrote that? Who was responsible for that? So,
right.
And you just like, and it's like, okay, maybe the fact that we don't know the names of any of these people and don't know what they've been responsible for and everything, it's like nobody can even call these people out categorically for what they're producing. Because categorically, they're producing a lot of very bad segments on television. And you kind of want to say, it's like, how can you raise some of these and like find out who's the one that's producing the most categorically bad programming and work your way backwards?
Yeah, you're right. You know, the only name you heard was when Ryan Ward came up from NXT.
I don't even know who that guy is. I've never heard that name. It's like
everybody was talking about Ryan Ward, and then he got paired up with Road Dogg, and then when Road Dogg had Ryan Ward demoted again, they clashed because Ryan Ward was doing his whole thing at NXT, and then when he was over at SmackDown with Road Dogg, and they were supposed to be working together, mainly like Road Dogg went with his own stuff. And Ryan Ward was moved down, and there was a big backlash online where like he was getting loads of hate tweets and all that kind of stuff. But that was
so what's Ryan Warren's background? Who is the guy? What is he?
I have no idea. Like he basically popped up as a name when people were starting to look for why NXT was a much better book show. And we're talking back in, he booked it from like 2000, he was writing it from 2015 to 2017 before he got promoted to SmackDown. And then
you really kind of think about it. So, if you do think about this, that's one thing Vince, I'll argue this with Vince too, is that Vince is constantly talking about writers, wrestling's writers. I'm like, Vince, there's been writers for like the past 20, 25 years of professional wrestling. I go, in the past 20 alone, it's just been on a downward spiral the entire time. I was like, you can't possibly tell me that, like, you have to be a writer to know how to get ratings because there's no history of anybody getting ratings in the past 20 years. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so you could argue it's like maybe wrestling does not need writers. Because we have a very strong sample size of like, what wrestling needs is a people that have good ideas that they can translate to tell. Bro, all bookers have been good. Bookers have been guys with good ideas and very creative, and you're just nailing a lot of like you got good ideas for things. But in professional wrestling business, what happens is like this was working with Dutch Mantel. It's funny. Dutch is actually very brilliant, okay, and he's very creative. But he made this comment one time, and I just disagree with this. Says wrestling's just plagiarism. We're just kind of like repeating the angles and stuff. And like, well, that's not very creative in the sense of the word to me. You know what I'm saying? And especially like all the hours of TV we've had over the past 20, 25, 30 years. It's like this has all been done repeatedly over and over and over and over. So my whole thing has always been, it's like, okay, you need to start getting more outside the box.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you get too outside the box and you've lost your fans. And I think that's where wrestling's in their lane right now, is where they've just gotten too outside the box with too much cartoonishness, too much in-ring cartoonishness, and like all the old tropes of like babyface and heel and serious and heel babyface and all that. We need to kind of maybe get back towards that, towards that side of the business, because it's gotten too far away from seriousness. We need to bring it back more to like portraying this as a lot more serious than we do. And I think that's a solution going forward.
Well, so this week's Raw, it comes to this point every Monday. I'm sitting there through Raw, and you're always hearing about these rewrites and everything that goes on and these changes, and you're thinking like, wow, with all this effort and all this like fine tooth picking and checking that goes through it, that it would be a perfectly booked show, or that it would be very close to being, at least entertaining. Like, there's just nothing on this week's Raw again that at all that you needed to see.
No. Let me give you a perfect example. I'll just show you. Perfect example. So the show ended. All right, the pay-per-view ended with a character getting burned to death.
Right.
All right. So, obviously that wasn't. I mean, if it's to be taken seriously, okay, the first and foremost thing, the fans tuning in to Monday Night Raw, okay, that any sporting event, any television show, any newscast, any entertainment genre, in any way you look at it, if we're trying to find out what happened, this would be the first thing they would immediately address, because it's one of the most serious things that ever happened to anybody ever in the history of professional wrestling. Right? Okay. But it's obviously not. So immediately the fact they're not even talking about it, okay, and I always look at this as stuff as like, what's cartoonish and what's not. And I was like, are they going to invest me in the show, or are they going to turn me off? Right?
Would you have opened with a 10-bell salute?
I mean, something, who knows, right? But like, you're not going to immediately start with Asuka in the ring doing her blabbering the promos, everything you can't understand what she says.
Right.
Okay, so it's like I've tuned into the show because I heard they burned the Fiend alive, and I care how they're going to do this. I turn it on, and Oscar's blabbering like an imbecile, and I'm like, all right, so this is the opening segment. Like, whoever was in the writing room they review and open the show is like, I'm just one and Orton. And like nobody talked anybody out of that. Like, nobody brought that up. No, it's like how could you have been talked out of that? Like that's the whole tone of the show coming up. You know, it's like I'm just like, bro, like you look at these errors and like you're going like, what are they doing there? You know. So then, and then the funniest thing is like, so they have all these silly, you know, they have the girls come out. Nia Jackson, Shayna Baszler come out. They're all this atrocious verbiage. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it was. No, I'm agreeing. It was. I mean, it was. I watched it with my kid, and he just goes, and he even said like, "Oh, women, when the women are talking is terrible."
Right, and the funniest thing is like the finish of this match was Shayna just getting a choke out of nowhere, right?
Yeah,
bro, you didn't need 13 minutes to tell that story. You know, the choke because bro, these girls, these specific workers right here. I mean, Shayna's more decent than but the other ones are still kind of very green. The more time they have, the more opportunity they have to do stuff that does not look good. And 13 minutes for these four was ridiculous. You know, I mean, like it was not good.
Well, you have the same later when Charlotte and Oscar have to go up against Peyton and Lacey. They still had the same amount of time, maybe not as much, but that was the time dedicated to them. And that's the problem when you have such a filler show. You're showing like long entrances. You're running through ad breaks. All the matches are too long,
right.
And that was it through the entire.
Well, let me give you this, right? So now we got through the first segment, which provided some ridiculous cartoonish shifts with Asuka, and Asuka and Charlotte go to ringside and do color as an extra rib here, because now we got to listen to Asuka doing color in a language we can't understand what she's talking about, right? So, okay, so we're coming off the Fiend getting burned the night before. Very serious thing. What's going on? That all right? Maybe they're going to come back Maybe they're going to come back after this, and they're going to address it, right? So after this match, they go to the Hurt Business backstage. Oh, here's the Hurt Business. They're serious characters on the show. And immediately they bully some schlep backstage and rip his shirt or T-shirt off and make him wear a Hurt Business T-shirt. So like, okay, that's great. Now these guys they're in a cartoonish thing. Okay. So then they come in the ring. They're cutting a promo. They're taking a picture. R-Truth photo bombs the picture. And then the 24/7 schmucks come sprinting down the ring, the ramp. They chase him around, chase him all over the place, and chase him out. So now the Herp is in the ring. Now we have even more cartoonishness, right? Then Riddle comes out with Jeff Hardy with all these schmucks in the 24/7 thing still running around, and there's Christmas trees and Christmas presents surrounding the ring in the aisle. And like now, the Riddle comes out and cuts a promo that's the phoniest cut thing, like the verbiage like you've ever heard. And he's talking like, so I'm still waiting for the show to be serious, and it's just gonna be completely cartoonish for the first like 45 minutes of the show. And it's like, and I look at this and like, how do they expect people to watch this stuff?
When we do get to that segment, when Orton does do his shtick in the ring and he's talking about everything, and then we have the thing with Alexa in there with the swing. What did you think of that?
I mean, Alexa does. I think that the person that's writing this is a big mark for Silent Hill.
Oh, I've not seen that. That's a video game, right?
Silent Hill. If you want, bro, this is just this. I haven't played a lot of video games. I played Silent Hill. This to me, the guy's like a total mark for Silent Hill. That's about the best way I can describe it. Like dark, evil, children, playgrounds, but you know, like it's. I mean, it's just like I said, it's just I don't know. I mean, she does it well, but is it too over the top to draw the casual fan? Is this too over the top TV?
Well, I think burning a man alive. I think when you're looking at the puppets and things, when you're looking at the puppets and things like that, I think it's a little bit of a weird thing for people to get into unless they've seen the background of it. I mean, if you watch a few episodes of Firefly Funhouse, if you're really dedicated, you can sort of understand what it's about. But I think burning a man alive, I think that's a good point to start. And I do, in a weird way, I do. But I don't think that they did enough with it. I think they should have opened the show with it. But it was weird. Once Alexa's in the ring and she does that whole bit with him, they then go to the announcers and they're really selling it and going, "I can't believe what we just seen."
Yeah, and they're overselling it, like they're trying to act like it's super serious. And you're going like, why are they doing this? Bro, everything's just awkward. It's just very awkward. There's pockets of stuff that were not awkward on this show. Like perfect example, all this stuff is very cartoonish. But earlier, the 2 minutes of Angel Garza and Drew Gulak were actually very good television because it's very physical. Okay, and when the T-Bar guy beat up Ricochet, looked pretty convincing as in-ring stuff. And like that's like some of the only stuff in the show that looked anything remotely serious. You know, what do you think about that?
I think the Retribution thing has been dead.
It's absurd.
Yeah,
it's absurd.
From what that was, from how it started. I know it wasn't great from the beginning, where they were. You know, I think they wanted. It seemed like they had in their mind. I think they were doing like an Antifa thing with these guys. You know, taking over the performance center and everything like that. But it never resonated with people. But I still think they thought it was going to be something big. But from the moment they unveiled Ali as leader and then just put it in with these NXT guys, it was always heading downhill. And from where where it's at, where you're just recruiting Ricochet. This isn't going to be a compelling part of the show. I think the main storyline they tried to weave in throughout the show was that, you know, for the last few weeks they've been doing a thing where they've been going through the relationship between Drew and Sheamus, and they've had Keith Lee going up to Sheamus and saying to him, "Oh, you're going to turn on your friend. You're going to turn on your friend." Like now, Keith Lee's like this fucking like nosy neighbor. Who that's his role now. Like he came in as the big and this is what I speak to Russo about. And Russo always says to me, he goes, "This guy was never a star. How do you think this guy was a star? Like this guy was never going to be. I don't understand what anybody ever saw in this guy because Vince doesn't watch NXT." And I'm always trying to explain to him, going, "Yeah, this guy was really good in NXT. Like he didn't say."
Yeah, but NXT's he wouldn't have a live crowd. It's a friendly live crowd. It's a partisan live crowd. It's a very niche audience, the NXT, because the TakeOver is a very niche, smart group. Because the thing is, bro, they know this product is good, but it's still a niche product because not a lot of people watch NXT because the perception in the wrestling fans' mind is like, oh, this is just a developmental. And I know this because I was one of those people that thought like that. I would watch NXT haphazardly, just here and there, and I would see a match that had some of their students or green guys in it. And I thought they looked green. I'm like, oh, this is not interest me. And the problem is they just don't have a lot of star power on that show. But there are some good characters and performers in that system, especially when they work against each other. But it's like, I don't think you can sit there but there's no evidence showing that anybody coming from popularity in NXT resonates to popularity on the main system.
Okay, so let's disregard that, but then just looking at his look and his ability and the way
he needs to tighten up his work. I train professional wrestlers. Number one, his promos where he's doing, I'm talking like this and greetings and salutations and stuff, that doesn't work. He's a big guy. He needs to talk like this and talk like he's gonna whoop your, he needs to talk more seriously in a more menacing way. Okay, number one, because it's the way he looks like. He doesn't need to be like Shrek. He needs to be like Bob Sapp was. It was a killer, So he said, "Gay one, like be low."
That wasn't his shtick in NXT, though, was it? Like it's been he's hamped it up because it's surely something that Vince wanted more of. Isn't Vince setting him in this direction?
There's good promos with Cross. Promos here where he's trying to act like he's well spoken and stuff. That ain't him. And second of all, he's had a couple opportunities where they've had like pull aparts or beatdowns, and his strikes have looked very, very weak.
Right.
And it's like to the point where they probably pulled him aside and said, "Bro, you gotta lay your shit in here, if you want to draw money." But he's just he's like he's working with the main guys, and he's worried about working too hard with them or something. That's what from a trained eye, that's what it looks like. But I always tell guys, lay your shit in and apologize later, because on live TV you got to get yourself over, and he's missing opportunities to get himself over because he's green,
So the main thing they do is they build up this three-way and this confrontation between Sheamus and Keith Lee, and Drew's in the middle. Like, what do you think of this? Like, do you think this is a good spot for like Drew to be in and for his whatever his next feud is?
No, because it's rerun television. It's part of the rerun angle they do every time. What do they do in these situations every single time? It's like two of the characters are going to have odds with each other, and they're going to have a match against each other next week. If you go back in the history of their booking, this happens every single time. It's like that. There's not a lot of variations when they're presented. It's like if this was like a video game, like The Sims or something like this, like these character-driven video games, were just like the options for storylines would not be very big. There would not be a very big list.
Right.
Option A, option B, option C, and we've seen these over and over and over. This is option A. The two guys, for three guys, two guys aren't getting along. What's going to happen? Oh, it's a tag match, a mixed tag. Oh, they're going to hit each other. They're going to get mad at each other. It happens every single time.
Ironically, they have this in their own computer games. They have a career mode in their own.
Bro, they're literally playing on their computer games on real life. Right. That's how simplistic. Bro, they don't even. They're letting the computer games program the show. That's probably why. Like, they already have bookers anymore. Like, let's just let AOS do the show this week.
Oh, the programmers from 2K would write nothing worse than what Bruce Pritchard and those guys are doing now. But I mean, so you didn't work with Pritchard? Because if you were at TNA,
I met him one time. It was a very good conversation. I met him at Booker T school. I worked the show for Booker T, and then he was down there and stuff. And I got along with him. We would get along. I could tell right now. Me and him would get along pretty well.
So there was no crossover because you were at TNA with Vince, so you were booking with Vince.
No, maybe I was there for Maybe I was at TNA for one show when he was there.
Right.
Yeah, but I spoke to him briefly. Maybe I don't recall. I've had the only real interaction I had with him was at Booker T school.
So you don't hold him like wholly or like largely responsible for this, because it seems to have got a lot worse since he came in.
No, I blame everybody. I blame the way the workers are working. I blame the fact that these guys can't deliver promos. I blame the writers for writing bad promos, and I blame the bookers for writing bad angles, and for letting the outrage culture or the fake outrage people get a hold of the show.
Social justice warriors.
Yeah.
So do you think
that's problematic?
Do you think
wrestling's not going to grow with a considerable amount of social justice warriors where we're trying to deliver content that 18 to 49-year-old male audiences want to see, but the social justice warriors are trying to say, no, you can't give that to them.
Yeah, it's hard to build up storylines when people are offended by everybody, and that's why you kind of...
It's fake. They're not offended either. They're just pretending to be offended because acting like you're offended gains you strength in the social argument.
Well, it's all Ryan Satin. It's all Ryan Satin syndrome, where you wake up in the morning looking to be offended by something, and then you decide to go on the Twitter about it. That's his whole shtick.
It's a path to relevance for a lot of these guys.
That's the only way Ryan Satin is relevant, by doing this shtick since he came on the scene. But he's pissed off a lot of people since then, including a lot of the wrestlers. So, I mean, I
he's
think
on Fox now, so that's like, he's not even really like a dirt sheet guy anymore.
Yeah,
it's like it's really not. It's like he's worked for Fox. It's kind of funny that they would have got but that's surprising. That I'm not surprised that Fox hired him. They probably wanted somebody they wanted a market on that content. Like one job, I think it's fascinating that Vince never just took whatever chunk of change he had and just went and said, okay, I'm gonna hire Keltzer and Miller and Keltzer. Or Meltzer and Keller
to do what?
Just to do smart content on their site.
Do you
Like,
think?
why not? It's just like everybody knows the shit's a work. Like the WWE.com trying to portray this as a work on their thing. It's like and letting all the dirt sheet guys garner that market for all that content and everything. Why didn't they just hire them and stick them on their site?
You think?
I mean, it makes sense.
Big an appetite for it.
But look at all the content out there.
Yeah, but that content is considered to be insider information. Like the WWE wouldn't want. How can it come from?
They're already doing it.
Are
we're already looking. We're already watching documentaries, watching Braun Strowman crying. It's like how far? I mean, how far? How much deeper behind the curtain do you have to get?
Right.
They're already behind the curtain. It's like so you're letting a lot of this content, but everybody already knows it's out there for the right. You're saying, no, we can't fish in those ponds. It's like, why not? It's like everybody else is. It's like all your fan base is. It's like, why not just get those people that are throwing the fish in the water, bring them to our site, and have draw that audience to our site.
Did you see the one where Liv Morgan, where they talked about where they actually
everybody cries these days? Every documentary is about somebody crying.
Lon
is crying. Liv Morgan says that everybody's crying these days. Like, it's like, bro, we're looking at the time of professional wrestling. The ratings are at the lowest point, and they're producing content showing all the characters crying. You can't even write that joke. It's hysterical.
Liv's one actually talked about how she's being messed around creatively, how she was given false promises. How she was made to turn up for 12 weeks without anything for her. Yeah. Like that actually really goes into burying the creative and such on the WWE Network show. Me and Russo spoke about that and wondered whether these shows actually get signed off for by WWE and whether someone like Vince McMahon actually even watches them or knows about them.
Yeah.
You need to go now, right? You need to
go wrap it up. So
yeah, I actually said to Vince, I emailed him and said, "Pop on for the last 5 minutes." Just on our show.
She's been showing up late. Actually, he's a schmuck. Hey, you guys all can catch me on @TheRealDisco on Twitter, @DiscoMasterGG on Instagram and Snapchat. I do Keeping It 100 with Conan. Billy Body's been a friend of the show, regular on the show, and that drops on MLW Radio and Spreaker on Thursdays. I'm on Vince Russo's podcast, Lions, Tigers, Bears, and Disco. I do on the Realm Network with him on Fridays on the Russo brand. And on his Patreon, on the Russo brand Patreon, I do a show called Time Out. And it's basically just me and Vince talk about current events and stuff. The Lions, Tigers, Bears, and Disco show is about the news. And with Conan, on the Conan site, we have Conan.me, KONN.me is our Patreon. Tons of extra content, tons of fan interaction. A lot of roundtables with fans. We do an AEW NXT review every week after the show with fans, for the Patreons to come on and discuss the shows with us. So, and that's some of the content we do. But everybody check it out.
Yeah, what I'll get you to do before I get the show out, if you just email me that, and I'll put it in the description.
Cool.
Yes. Yeah. All right. No worries. Yeah.
Text me your email or message me your email.
I just.
Oh, you already did. That's right. Okay, cool. All right. I'm in. Peace.
All right. Cool. Thanks for doing that. Yeah. Cheers, Glenn.
All right. Bye.
Thanks.